Hello, and welcome to the Flying Dollar Motorsports channel. Today we're doing a little work on the rear end of the Material Girl. So today we're going to install a new ARB diff cover on my Xterra here. It's a 2008 Xterra. When I was looking around for videos on this on YouTube, I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot, so I wanted to add one to you. I did watch one from All Dogs Co-op Off-Road. I think they were working on a 2022 Frontier, and I noticed a few differences, so I wanted to go ahead and point out some of the things that are different here on mine. Obviously, mine being modified, there's going to be a few differences that you might notice as you work underneath if you have a stock one or you haven't modified yours as much as I am, and I'll go over those with you real quick. So the first thing that might look a little goofy to you is I don't have a sway bar running across mine. I removed it for added articulation. You can just see a couple of mounts there that I've already cut off. They'd be in here somewhere, so that's easy to remove. It's just a couple of bolts, but you might have to remove that to get to your diff cover to get clearance. Also, you'll notice I have no spare tire under here, and I have a significant amount of lift. I have a 4-inch suspension lift and a 2-inch body lift, which raises this up even more. So your spare tire would normally sit right about here. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you may have to pull down your spare tire too, just to make it easier for clearance. Okay, so this is the box you're going to get. You know, it says a high tensile, solid, nodular iron differential cover, ideal for competition rock crawling or use on extreme off-road trails. So when you open it, this is what it's going to look like. Got your instructions, you got your diff cover, you got some new bolts, new mounting bolts. Notice that some of these are slightly longer than the other ones, so we'll show you that when we get there, and you'll have your drain cover there. As well as for the M226, this is your brake bracket. This is to hold the emergency brake that you'll be replacing the bracket for. So this is what you're going to need to complete this job. I just finished it technically. I'm filming this at the end. I'm going to put it in the front to show you what you guys need. You can do this with a 3/8 inch socket. I use the screwdriver because it just makes it a little faster. You don't need one of these, it just makes it faster. You're going to need a 3/8 inch extension for your drain plug on your stock one, and to reach some of the bolts here you will need a 6mm Allen wrench and an 8mm Allen wrench for the bolts on the new cover. These are for the new bolts. This is for the new drain cover and fill port. You don't need to use a socket. You can use just a regular old Allen wrench. This just makes it a lot easier again. And for your stock bolts, you're going to need a 13mm to get the old pit cover off, and to get the brake bracket off, at least on mine, I had to use a 12mm. Okay? Then for the new brake bracket that they supply, you'll see later there's a little bit of a fitment issue. I had to use a 3-inch cutoff wheel to cut it off, and then to smooth down the nasty edges I just used a file, and that probably took me 2 minutes of filing. There's other ways to do it, but this is what I used. So the first thing you're going to want to do is drain all your differential fluid. Now for that you'll need a 3/8 inch extension here, just to reach this. Now I have an extra diff guard over this, so yours won't have this. You'll just have this stamped steel plate right here. And also I did want to note that this is for the M226 axle. So for off-road or Pro 4X, or I believe these came in all the 6-speed manual Xterras, if you have an automatic with a S, X, or SE trim line, you're going to have a different axle. It's going to be a C200, so that's going to be a slightly different procedure. And number two, I am not a professional mechanic. This is your disclaimer. So use this video as a reference. Do not use this as a direct how-to, because I have no professional training. I just like to figure out how to do it myself. So this is a reference only. Okay. So the first thing, like I said, you're going to want to go ahead and pop off your fill cover on the original one using a 3/8 inch extension. Now I'm just going to loosen it so that some air can get in there. And I'm going to go ahead and take out the drain plug out of the bottom. I apologize for the cars driving by. I'm just using my driveway for this project. Okay, so now that I've let all of the drain or oil drain out, the diff oil. I went ahead and replaced the plug because it's still got that last little drip coming out. You know, it's not really flowing out anymore, but it's just a drip, and the rest will come out once we pop the diff off. But the wind started to pick up a little bit here, and as you can see, I had to add a piece of cardboard because it was just blowing the gear oil all over my driveway. The Xterra does not fit in my garage, so I cannot go ahead and just move it into the garage. So we're going to go ahead and close this up, or just throw that across the ground like that. Now, before I do this, you may be wondering, why would I want to upgrade to an ARB diff cover? Obviously, I already have some armor here, but if you don't, diff covers are really good additions, because when you're driving through a trail or something and you get rocks along here, they can hit your bottom of your differential here and peel it back and cause it to leak, and then you got a slow leak. Not only are you dripping oil all over the ground, but you're losing lubrication for something that is moving constantly and at a high rate of speed. You can see how much I hit them backing up, going forward, etc. And this stamped steel plate is very susceptible to denting and getting holes punctured in it if you do back up into a rock hard enough. So this was something that I added many years ago. It was a Craigslist find. I got it for cheap. It's also a, you know, an iron diff cover, but it's a guard. So obviously you can see that I'm losing a little bit of clearance here because it sticks out. I mean, I can stick my whole finger in there. That's how much clearance I'm losing. So by putting a diff guard on there, or a diff cover that's iron, I'm not only going to get the protection that this provides, but I'm going to get the clearance that I get from the stock, having the stock one on there. And it's even a slightly smaller, I believe. We'll have to compare it, and I will show you the thickness difference between this and the nodular one once I get this thing all off. So the first thing you're really going to want to do is remove your emergency bar or parking brake bracket right here. Okay, so this, from what I found, is a 12mm bolt, and you will remove the parking brake itself. Now, I've already gone ahead and done that. The reason mine is always going free is, one, because I have the lift again, and I have so much more articulation than stock that I was having some binding on this, and it was pulling it in a manner that I wasn't comfortable with, so I just leave it hanging down here like that loosely for when I go off-roading. And then you're going to want to remove, the next thing you're going to want to remove is your diff cover bolts. Now, again, I have slightly longer ones. Yours will all look like the ones on the top of mine, slightly longer ones that came with this guard. Okay, and these are 13mm. Now, you're going to want to have your pan back under here, because once you pull this thing off or loosen it up, it could leak a little bit more diff fluid. Also, I forgot to add that you'll have to pull these tabs down. You could use a wrench or pliers, but I'm able to just peel them up with my hand and pull your hard brake line out of there. Okay, you just need to free it up. You see it's pretty stiff. You're not going to be able to pull it too far, okay, but it'll stay there. But you definitely don't want to try to rip that diff cover off with that on there. So now we've got all the bolts on the stock diff cover out. Now there's a couple ways you can pull this off. Some people like to use a pry bar to get in here. I would like to use that as a last resort, because if you do scratch the differential housing and not just the cover, you know, that's a potential to leave an area for fluid to leak out. I'm going to go ahead and just put that cover back, or that fill port back in, just to keep it out of the way. We're going to figure out, what I'm going to try to do is use a mallet to just kind of knock it off and break it loose. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this bracket over here out a little bit, just to give my hard brake line a little more play, because I'm kind of pulling on it here and I don't like it. Just to get the diff cover out. So we got to remember to reattach that when we get back. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with some brake cleaner, just to get some of the old oil and stuff out and clear that stuff out. very important that you keep this thing clean, because if any dirt and debris dropped in, like I had a little bit up here on this, I think that's the locker actuator, it can get inside your gears and inside this really fine area here and it'll start to damage your gears, and you don't want that. Now you also want to make sure that you get all of this old gasket material off of the sealing surface of the axle housing, because if you don't, what you end up with is just spaces for the new sealer to not seal properly and an opportunity for leakage. Okay, now this is kind of a tedious job, but it's very important that you get this done. You can buy a specific gasket scraper that might make it easier, get you a little more leverage, but I'm going to go ahead and use a razor blade because I already have these and you probably already have them as well. Now, I did say earlier I would try to give you a comparison of the thickness of the two, and I have the left on the ARB, and on the right I have the stamped steel stock one. You can kind of see the difference right there. It is significant, and this is going to be significantly more resistant to backing up into things and dinging it and getting peeled back from the underside of it. Okay, so according to the instructions in the manual, it says to use a piece of tape, go from the bottom of your original filler cap, which is kind of the old school way I was always taught to check diff fluids. If you can reach your pinky in there and just barely touch it, then you've got the right fluid level. Draw a straight edge across with that. Then you want to take your supplied differential bolt and you want to set it in the position it would be in. Now the O-ring is on here, and you want to set that down just to the edge where it would be, just about like that, and that'll give you an idea. Now I'm going to take a marker and mark off the top of that masking tape there, and then I'll make a little cut to make sure that the marker line doesn't wear away and I have no idea where to fill to next time. So I already went ahead and did a little test fit off camera with this to make sure that there wasn't going to be any clearance issues, but you want to make sure that you clean the inside of this mounting surface really good, because the RTV that you're going to lay down, or if you use RTV, that's what I'm going to use, needs a really nice clean surface to seal to. If you use something like a lube blocker, obviously you want to have it clean anyway, but you don't have to worry about it sticking. Now, when I said earlier, you have a couple different length bolts that are supplied with the kit, and the longer ones are these 4 bolts here. It doesn't really make it clear, but once you kind of look at it, you realize that the shorter bolts aren't going to fit all the way in there. So I'm obviously just hand tightening these just to get this thing guided, making sure that all the holes are lined up so I don't have to pull it off and redo the gasket. Okay, so now we've come to the portion. I've got almost all of the bolts on here, but this brake bracket is designed to go into these 2 little notches here, right? And kind of give your old brake bracket a place to rest. Kind of hard to do with one hand, sorry. But you can see there's even a notch in the bottom of it to match your stock brake bracket. Now, I don't need this because I don't have mine on there anyway, but I am going to put it on there anyway, just so I make sure that 10 years down the road I don't know where find this bracket in my garage and don't know what it is. But as you can see, there's a clearance issue with this ABS sensor or locker actuator. I'm not sure what it is, but you can see it doesn't go in there. So what I'm going to try to do is cut down the corner or grind it off. You can probably use an angle grinder or just a cut-off wheel, but I'm going to try to do that real quick. Okay, so you can see in there I just kind of ground that corner off. I used a cut-off wheel and then just a file to grind it down smoothly, and it fits okay. Now we're going to go ahead and put all these back in. Now, just like on a car, you want to go ahead and use like a star pattern to get them all in, but I'm just going to use the screwdriver here to get them all the way in before I start snugging on them. Now that we've got them all pretty snug, the instructions call for everything to be torqued to 25 foot-pounds. I don't have a torque wrench that goes that low. I think I only have one that goes down to 50. So we are just going to do the old German method of Guten tight. And then I'll come back on and I'll just check on them here in a few days or so after it's had some time to set. And at this point you want to go ahead and stick your emergency brake bracket right back where it belongs. Last thing before filling the fluid is put in your magnetic drain cover. And we're going to go ahead and fill it up here. I got about 3 quarts here of 75 140. Book calls for about 2.5 of this because it's the M226, which again, it's in all your manuals of this generation Xterra from 2005 to 15, and all of the off-road or Pro 4X models. If you have the C200, I believe it calls for like a 7590. Alright, so I've got about a 1/2 quart in there now, and I'm just going to go through and check to see if I have any seepage here before I go and fill it all the way up, because then I'd just be wasting all of my... It looks pretty clean. We got a little bit of gasket maker there. Well guys, there she is. I think it looks pretty good. I like the red. They offer them in black, but to me, having that red ARB Diff cover under there, it's kind of like those tramp stamp tattoos that were so cool back in the late or early 2000s, you know? Just kind of see it peeking out under there. Makes you wonder, you know? But hopefully I won't regret this one after I gain a few pounds. And if you liked the video, like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and I hope to see you back here again on Flying Dollar. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.